Hello there, I'm Bonnie, and today we're gonna talk about my mid-year setup for the second half of 2024. So this is my Bujo for volume 2, and it is the same case as my journal for the first half. This notebook has the gray pages of the Strathmore toned gray notebook, but the cover of a Roco white sketch pad, which has this front cover just for reference. It is an A5, but it is wider than their black sketch pads, so it covers the white pages. And I had to buy a separate notebook, a separate new sketchbook, just so that I can switch the covers. So as you saw, my theme is pearls and oysters, and I'm not 100% done with this theme. I think there are a few spreads that I'm gonna add, but for now it is good and I would like to share it. So I wanted something as elegant as my first setup, which was orchids. I wanted something to sort of match that vibe, but also be simple enough. And I don't know why I equated pearls with simple, because they are not, but the way I did them ended up being similar or simple enough. So I did that, and I'm really loving these fine line or like line art elements. I have them on my Tumblr, on my CV, and my portfolio, and I decided to have them here as well. I just thought it would be a nice touch, and I decided to do it on white paper, but ended up actually doing it on cream paper and used this washi tape also. So we're gonna talk all about this stuff and how I ended up choosing everything and how everything came to be. So starting with the cover page, the paper came from my long-term collections notebook, which is this one. I got this one from Shein, and I got it because it was small enough and it had 2 rings, so I can interchange the paper to fit whichever color I want, because I use more than a white background. So I want to test my stationery on, say, black, and also white, and also gray, and potentially craft, and a bunch of other types of paper. And I want it all to be in one place, and this was the perfect solution. It came with a large number of paper, and I don't really care for the paper itself. It is good quality, but not for all purposes. I redid this cover page like 5 times, I think, to get the result that I wanted. It does not handle water too well, because it did start peeling at some point in the previous versions. I don't have them, unfortunately. I think I threw them out, but yes, the paper came from here, and it is not a true white. It is a creamish color, but I think that made this theme turn out much better. I settled on this image, which inspired the whole theme. I first wanted to do it just using markers, did not work. Used it with markers, but the markers are activated with water, that did not work. Attempted briefly watercolor, did not work. I did this technique, which is doing the line art and then adding a bit of pigment of the pink, and that worked, except that I ended up doing the numbers a bit too larger than I wanted, so I had to repeat it for the 5th time until I arrived to this version, which I absolutely love. By the way, I did not mention it, but this notebook's name is Pearl. So the first notebook is Orchid and this is Pearl, and they have somewhat of the same aesthetic and elements. So yes, I used 2 fine liners from Unipen, the 003 and 005, which is the 2 smallest sizes to do the ink section. So I did that, and obviously first I had a pencil sketch, and I smudged that, and I used a smudging tool in the smallest size that I have to smudge the pencil sketch and then add the outlines. and shading with the fine liners. And then I used one of two Crayola Colors of the World markers. It is either, or maybe a mix of both, the light rose and the very light rose, to get this pinkish color, which is my favorite. It did turn out a little bit muddy being blended on top of the smudged graphite, but I don't mind that. I do like that actually. I all in all like how this turned out. And yeah, I did that, and then I found this font which I really liked, and I will pop it on the screen obviously and link it down below, and I liked that, so I did the same steps. And yes, blended the sketch, did the outline, and then I used the brush pens. And the way I used them is I had my clear palette on the side, and I scribbled the marker pigment onto the clear palette, and had a paintbrush, probably the size, maybe not 12, but maybe 11 or 10, so on the larger size. Dip it into water, dip it into the pigment that is on my clear palette, apply it into the paper to get this result. And that is a technique that I've used plenty on a white background or on lighter backgrounds, and it worked very well here. And I did the same for the letters. That is, I did not use the marker directly on the paper because I think that would give me a different look. And then for the washi tape, I actually ended up completely running out and using the entire roll of washi, but it came as part of this set of glitter tape, which I also got it with 4 other sets in different color schemes. And I do have a swatch of the color that I used in my previous LTC journal, which has been retired, so that I can use that one, but I have the washi tape swatches here. So these are the other 4 sets that I have, and this is the color that I wanted. I was actually going to use this one because compared to the other pink, this one was the one I liked, but then on the paper, like on itself with the white paper and the gray background, I preferred this one better. So that is what I used to make this cover page. And then these, I traced them and then used a size 08 fine liner to do these. And the turnout ended up being very beautiful. Alrighty, flipping over to my future log. I wanted a similar layout because this really worked for me in my current Bujo, but I wanted to make it a little bit different because based on experience, having the same exact layout and idea doesn't really work for me. So I'm gonna show you my future log of the first half. I'm trying to find it. This was it, and this is my new one. So the first change is obviously this is on a white background with pink accents. The second change is I used the month initial as the header for each month. This time I wrote the number instead, so that it varies a little bit, but same idea basically. And I ended up adding these very thin strips of washi tape just to add some pop down below. And I did this wave of the line art, and this took forever to do, but it turned out really beautiful and I really like it. This is done using the same pens and markers, but because it is on a gray background, it is a bit more muted, which I don't mind really. And that is it for the cover page. Use the same exact materials and the same pages. And let's see the size of the page just for reference, if I can find my ruler, because my desk has descended into chaos when I decided to record this video. So it is 14.5 centimeters by 4 centimeters almost. Moving on to my goals and intentions. I have not filled this out yet. I'm gonna do that at the start of July. So again, this is similar to my layout in the first Bujo. I have the headers down below, and I used this really fun font that I saw on Pinterest and really loved, and I used a brush pen from Bujo, I think the brand is called. That was a part of a set, and I used this one to do the headers because I really like this font. And then I did another oyster and a pearl here, and because it was done directly on the gray paper, I had to use a coloring pencil, and I think I ended up using the white polychromos from Faber-Castell to add the white pigment. Or maybe, I'm not exactly sure because I can't remember, maybe I went into my watercolor palette and used the white from there. I'm not too sure. And then I added this simple wave here. Ended up doing 6 sections for the goals because that is what looked best. And I had this idea to do it this way. I thought it was a really cute idea. And then I did a ladder. I did this digitally in a PowerPoint presentation and really liked it there. And I must have been crazy at 2 a.m. doing this spread that I wanted to recreate it here with the washi tape. So I ended up cutting a bunch of small washi tapes to do here to get the ladder effect. And this is where I'm gonna write the steps that I can take on a weekly, daily, monthly basis to achieve my goals slowly or contribute towards them. And I thought a ladder is like the stepping stones. I'm climbing the ladder towards my goals. Too much symbolism maybe, but it turned out really good, and I will fill it out very soon. The next spread is my projects page. I had a projects page in my first Bujo, but it was at the back of the journal, so I brought it here. And I've been really wanting to do these waterfall tip-ins, and I was inspired by Jashi Curran from one of her R&D Bujo's flip-throughs. And I thought this would be good for a project or for a projects page because I like sharing my Bujo, but I don't always want to show people or let people see my projects and my progress on them, especially if I don't make a progress at all. So this is a good way to hide it from me and from you. So I did that. I ended up using the same paper obviously and outlined it, so there's a little bit of distinction between the pages, and ended up using this washi at the top, but actually this is where I ran out, so I was using a second roll for the ones below because it didn't really matter. So I did one pink and one corally, I guess, and I did use clear tape on the other side to secure it better because this is not the best adhesive washi that I've used. So yeah, I did that, and I also did 6 sections because that is what fit best here, and I think it's enough for projects. And I already have a few things that I'm gonna populate in here, so we're gonna do that. This is my future me problems, or as I like to name it, my to get to list, which is things that I'm gonna get to at some point and do. And I have a section in my monthly sets or setups where I use that on a month-to-month basis, and anything that doesn't get achieved, it gets moved here. And if I'm looking to do something and I don't know what I want to do, I can refer to this list. And I did have one in my current Bujo, and it was a double-sided or like a full spread, and I only used 1/2, so this time I did just 1/2, and I used the light rose marker to do the dots and the lines, and just did a thin strip of the glitter washi for the headers, just to bring in some of the washi tape some more on this spread, and used that same font with the brush pen to do the headers. Then we have my finances page, which is looking quite empty, but I did that font at the bottom and did a strip of a washi that I cut down in the middle, and I did an envelope with that paper. And the idea is I never have enough for all 6 months, so this time I'm gonna just do them like in an envelope, and I can pull like September, and I'm gonna have all of my inflows and outflows here. And I watched recently a setup by Erin Smith where she talked about her cash flows journal and how she sets it up, and I really like that. So I'm gonna be doing some analysis in this Bujo to figure out my categories so that I can implement a similar system to hers. And I have not figured out what this space is gonna be used for. This is actually the last spread that I set up at the front of the journal. I'm probably gonna add a period tracker, and I had another tracker in mind for personal relations management, I think. So I think I'm gonna do that here. And I was actually gonna add another tracker for cooking and baking. Instead of putting stickers on my monthly calendar, I'm gonna print the 6 months here, and I can assign 2 different colors to signify when I have cooked or baked. So that is that. And then I do have a few things at the back. We have a key. I have finally noticed that I use the same symbols every time, so I decided to add a key here with some washi corner to reflect the cover page style, if I can find the page. And then so I have a circle for tasks. I for the most part put a check mark through it or on top of the circle rather than color it in to signify if it is completed. A line is a sub task, so again completed is a check mark on top of the circle. A triangle is for work, a exclamation point is for a highlight, a star is for appointment or one-time things, and a dot is a note. And I don't like follow it to a T, but for the most part I use these consistently enough. I also have these 2 spreads that I set up at the back to test them these months, and if I like them I will move them to my LTC journal. But it is the daily dose and dopamenu things. The daily dose is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphin, and you can track if you are feeling one of these things. That means you're low on one of these chemicals, and then you have ways to increase one of these chemicals. So for example, if I have lack of motivation, that means I'm lacking in dopamine, or I have low levels of dopamine, and I can do one of these things to amp up the dopamine in my body, like take my supplements, because that really does help. Make a to-do list or a brain dump, create something, swatch stationery. But I've noticed when I was combining my list that a lot of the symptoms overlap and a lot of the solutions overlap. So I decided to also have a running dopamenu. Every time I come across something that can be classified as a dopamenu item, I write it here, like chair disco that I do with some friends. Really gets your body moving and the chemicals pumping, so I did that. Some things here is tidy the desk, swatch some stationery, have a cup of coffee, flip through previous Bujos, do a face mask, watch a YouTube video of mine, or online window shopping, some things like that. So those are those, and then I have just my tests page, which I like to call scribbles that matter, because these scribbles decide how I do things, so they do matter. And that is it for my yearly setup. Let's take a look at it all at once. Beautiful. Pearl is gonna serve me so well in these 6 months, I hope. But that is it for my yearly setup. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. Tell me what is your yearly theme, or anything at all. Let me know an interesting fact, or what spreads you like to include in your yearly setup. Next, I think it's gonna be my July setup, because I'm gonna actually film it right after this one. So hopefully they're gonna go up in time. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next one.